us in Africa. When we concentrate on Nigeria, we are not saying anything about other African nations. Look at our neighbors over here in the Sahel region. Look at the problems they are giving us in Nigeria. Since they have left the International Court of Justice, they have formed their own union. They might be right, they might be wrong. Look at what is happening in Sudan. Not African speaking. Look at what is happening even in your Kenya. Is it Nigeria speaking? So let everybody also take care of his own apartment, of his own corridor, of his own axis. My dear professor, my dear moderator, I may appreciate you. Thank you, because in court I will ask for 2 minutes more, but then let me thank you. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for the Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are going to turn the microphone to our third discussant who will talk from there, General Ike Nwachukwu. Do you have a microphone, sir? General Nwachukwu, you may sit, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
The chairman of Ireland Club, Professor Lumumba, discussing distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Nigeria remains the beacon of the black race. And we've proved that time and time again. When I think of the liberation of Southern Africa, particularly Namibia, Angola, Mozambique, South Africa, and the commitment that Nigeria made and the efforts Nigeria gave and the total involvement in ensuring that if any one African is in bondage, us all are in bondage. We stood up for our brethren. Rather unfortunately, the leaders of those countries that we helped to liberate either did not school their people in what Nigeria has done for their liberation. We have our people been taunted, been thrown out, been disgraced in the countries where we spent money and time and blood. I can remember my time as foreign minister, traveling around Africa. How many times did I miss an aircraft? All in the name of the emancipation of the African race. And we are proud to have done that. Yes, Nigeria must lead the charge. And we are not shy in leading the charge. We led the charge when it counted. In Liberia, I was foreign minister, I negotiated it, I went with my troops and so on, and we brought peace to Liberia. When we did, the Americans and the British and so on came behind under the umbrella of the UN to deride Nigeria of the benefit of our commitment to saving our people in Liberia. Same for Sierra Leone. Now, the point here is, we within our country, Nigeria, we are yet to coalesce as a nation. We talk Yoruba, talk Igbo, talk Hausa, talk Igbo, and so on. But, yes, there is value in ethnicity, but there's no value in ethnicity. That's the point SAN Wale Olanipekun was just making here now. We cannot have a country that will remain as strong as we want it to be when we are pulling apart along tribal and religious lines. Therefore, I join you, Wale, in calling on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a Democrat that we all know, a man who fought for federalism as governor of Lagos State when President Obasanjo stopped his allocation because he created multiple governments to be able to oversee the governance of his people properly. He went to court, and the Supreme Court gave judgment on his biddings. Therefore, what the point we must make over and over again is this: Nigeria cannot run as a unitary state. Our founding fathers, in their wisdom, created the three regions in the first instance and the fourth later. They were not stupid. They understood that unity is, like our government says, in diversity. Therefore, we must return to the proper people's constitution. I'm a military general, for God's sake. We were the ones that turned the thing over. All right? But I must say here that whatever policies we put in place, we did believe it was best for the country. But time may have shown that it isn't the best. Therefore, this country calls for a change. That change must come. All right? And our president, our beloved president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has the greatest opportunity to make this country better. And we plead to him to please convene a proper constitutional conference in which all the ethnic groups in this country would come together and negotiate a better Nigeria. Now, for Africa, I am proud to be an African. Anywhere I went in my time, I wore my Nigerian toga. Proud to be Nigerian, proud to be African. I never ever allowed any foreign minister, white, black, or yellow, to deride Africa whenever I was there. And I'm sure my colleagues that have taken over from me as foreign ministers are still defending that. We will continue to do that, but our brother Africans must also respect us. I mean, we did what we did, not asking for reward, but we did for the benefit of us all. And therefore, if your big brother has helped you out of trouble, the least you can do is show respect. So African countries must show love to Africans. You can't kick us out and expect us to continue to serve your mission and your desire. Because the more you put us down, the more the world puts down the black race. For as long as Africa, for as long as Nigeria remains on the stool, the whole of Africa will be on the stool. And we must get up at this point in time and work to make our country a better country, work to make Africa a bastion of development and respect. We're going there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General Nwachukwu. Now, I think the job of discussion is fairly well done, because I see that there will be opportunity to come back for a rounding up after the presentations, the awards that we're going to have. Permit me to give Professor Lumumba 5 minutes to respond to some of the things that have been said. But I want to draw your attention in particular to the focus on the return of the African spirit, the rebirth of Pan-Africanism as Africa as one, Ubuntu. This is what it is. What affects one African affects other Africans. And you have heard it said today, it's not just the sentiment of it, it's the reality. We need an Africanness that will guide even our continental free trade area framework. We need an Africanness that will guide, Africa's entry into an evolving global order. The opportunities are there, but it is time for us to think globally African. So Nigeria is ready. I think that's a point that has been made abundantly. Nigeria has always been ready. In this part of the world, we talk of Nigeria's manifest destiny. The fact that, the population that we have, the size that we have, the resources, all of these things were not given to us, they were not bestowed on Nigeria by accident. So that manifest destiny can only work for Africa if Africa, works for Nigeria also. But it's an opportunity for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. I've had the opportunity of listening to the discussion, and in many ways we are saying the same thing in different ways. In 2001, the Kenyan Professor Ali Mazrui wrote a paper which I commend. He said, if African politics is ethnic prone, can we have constitutions that are ethnic proof? And the essence of that paper was fine governance. And Ali Mazrui was coming from the standpoint of a statement that had been made a little earlier by the African-American John Henry Clark. Henry Clark had said that when there was the explosion of independence in Africa, each African country adopted systems of governance that were inherited from the colonizer, and that no African country will ever succeed by mimicking those systems. To answer your question, therefore, part of the thing that many African countries must do is to rethink governance. And I can't agree with you more. Nigeria, purely from a political science academic standpoint, claims, as many countries in Africa do, that we are federal. But when you look at the practice, it is not federal. The same is to be seen in Ethiopia. We also define ourselves as democratic. The Democratic Republic of Congo says we are the Democratic Republic of Congo. The question is, what is democracy? My submission is we must have the courage as African countries to rethink governance, to even ask ourselves whether there are elements within our traditional governance systems that can be infused, adopted and adapted to address the post-colonial states, which, as we all agree, are artificial states. The second issue that I would want to deal with is xenophobia. Nigerians have been the victims of xenophobia in South Africa. Right now, we see what is happening in Ghana, where the Ghanaians are telling the Nigerians to go, and one does not hear the voice of the African Union. One does not hear the voice of the political class. I'm suggesting that the time is now that we must up the ante. It is here in Lagos, Nigeria, in 1980 that we came up with the Lagos Plan of Action on how to re-engineer the continent of Africa. It is time that we must ask ourselves, how do we re-engineer the continent of Africa politically,